Hello.
Hi, Mr. Hartley.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Ready for this?
Hi, how are you?
Ready for this?
No, I don't have the Zoom up, so I think Candace has that.
I don't have the Zoom up, so
Not the Zoom, the
I'm
YouTube.
gonna I'm gonna turn one of mine off because I have both going, but we are live now and we'll wait a few more minutes and then we'll get started.
Guess I should mute too.
Hi, Stacy. Can you do a sound test just to make sure everyone can hear you?
Welcome, parents and students. Welcome to Vandalia's Parent Orientation with Schools PLP. Could you hear me okay?
Yes, thanks, Stacy.
Okay, great.
Okay, I think we're going to begin this evening. I'd like to welcome everybody this evening to our Vandalia Butler and Schools PLP and Montgomery County ESC Parent Orientation. My name is Brandon Hartley, and I'm the Director of Curriculum for Vandalia Butler. I'm going to start off by first introducing Stacy Anderson Cook and Candace Sears from the Montgomery County ESC. Both of them have been instrumental in helping us prepare for Schools PLP as we implement here at the beginning of this school year. I'd like to thank all of you for your flexibility as we prepare to begin. We were hoping to have students ready to begin today online, but as you know, we're going to be ready, we hope still, for Monday, August 31st. We understand the difficulty that a lot of you had making this decision to remove the kids from face-to-face and to go to remote, and we're here to help with this transition the best that we can. So I'm going to let you know that during this meeting tonight, first of all, Stacy's going to go through and model a little bit of what Schools PLP looks like, what you as a parent will experience and what your child will experience. She'll explain a little bit about the expectations for what a day will look like for the kids. We'll discuss a little bit of the progress and pacing and grading and attendance policies that we have here in the district. And along the way, I'll probably interject to clear up any questions that she may explain and how Vandalia Butler is actually going to handle them. So throughout the process tonight, you'll be able to use the chat feature, and then we'll have some time at the end for some questions and answers. And we are going to be recording our parent orientations, and we'll make those available to you in the near future. Before Stacy begins, I'd like to answer a couple of questions that we have had many times over the past week or so. And I'm going to review a little bit of what I've shared with you through some of our communications over the past 2 weeks. So first of all, remember, you can still pick up devices from home, from your home school throughout this week as well. Many of you picked those up last week, but we still have devices available in your home building. You don't need to use a Vandalia Butler device. You can use something at your own home if you and your child feel more comfortable with that. Just want to remind you too that you've committed to this first semester in the school's PLP program, and that's from now through December 28th. We will be evaluating this situation from now through this whole first semester, and we hope to have updates throughout and have a plan in place for semester 2 no later than Thanksgiving. We've said all along that students will be able to return to face-to-face schooling if you so choose in January. And I know many parents have had questions about how we will bring students back and will we have some type of an orientation back to schools, and we definitely will. We'll plan that out for both January and for what it would look like if your child returns not in January, but next school year at this time to face-to-face school. Later this week, I'll be sending individual emails to each family with student login information, including a link to the actual URL that your child will use to enter the Vandalia Butler PLP site. That email will also provide directions on how to log into either the Chromebook or iPad that you may have picked up at your home building. If students have used those devices in the past, they may remember how to log into the Chromebook or iPad, but I'll send directions just in case. Another big question is how we are going to monitor attendance during this remote learning. Attendance will be monitored, but it will look different than face-to-face school. Students can complete their work at any time during the day. There is no set hour that the student has to log on for math or reading or science or social studies. We'll be monitoring the students to make sure that they're active, that they're progressing, and that they're logging in each day to complete their assignments for that specific day. There'll be no set time, as I mentioned, and it'll be up to you as a family to decide when your child will be working on the school's PLP platform. Another question that's been brought up is, what if your child is ill while at home? And all I'll say there is try to be proactive and let us know, because we will be monitoring that the students are continuing to do the work that we've set forth through this program. And we'll have teachers and monitors that will be checking in on the students. So if for some reason a child is not able to complete their assignments for that day or for 2 days, it would be best if we were informed ahead of time. Otherwise, we will be reaching out to you to find out if there are problems. I've talked to many of you over the last 2 weeks individually, and I haven't completely sent this forward to everybody, but I did want to let you know that at grades K through 6, we will have Vandalia Butler teachers that will be the main contacts for the kids. At grades 7 through 12, we will be using school's PLP teachers as the main contact. In both cases, though, we will have a Vandalia Butler person that students can reach out to. In grades 7 through 12, we'll have monitors in place. And I'll send this information to each of you in our next email. One other big question that's come up lately has been school pictures. And I just want to share with you that each building has a plan in place for our school's PLP kids. So if you haven't already, you should receive information from your home building principal, as they've plan different ways for our students from the PLP school to come into the brick and mortar school to have pictures taken. And if you have any questions about that, always reach out to your school principal. So I understand there's going to be many questions still, even throughout this evening, and we're going to continue to reach out to you and help as best that we can. Make sure that you continue to reach out to me anytime you have a question. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy and Candace from the Montgomery County ESC.
Thank you, Mr. Hartley. So while Stacy is getting started, Stacy, your microphone is muted. While she's getting started, just want to welcome all of you. I am the Director of Instructional Services here at the Montgomery County ESC, and just want you all to know that these are new roads, new paths that we're traveling right now, unprecedented times, and just know that we know that these decisions that you all are making are really difficult. We're here with you. We're here to learn with you. This isn't what we're used to doing at the county level or in public districts world. So just know that we're here with you to support, and communication is going to be really important. If you have any questions that come up, or if you have any concerns, or just like I wonder ifs, please don't hesitate, reach out to Mr. Hartley. And we can support you in whatever it is that you may need. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy. Please feel free to continue to add questions in the chat. I will try to keep up with those and monitor those as we are moving along tonight. And then at the very end, there will be an opportunity for a few questions, and we'll try to answer those, whether it be from Mr. Hartley's end, or Stacy and I can try to navigate the questions as well through a school's PLP or ESC end. Okay, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Candace. I wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about the role of the school's PLP staff that will work with the older students, the 7 through 12. As Mr. Hartley mentioned, K6 will have Vandalia Butler teachers, but the older ones will have a site coordinator, which is Mr. Hartley at Vandalia Butler, as a point of contact. He will be contacting parents and students if in the event that they need to have a face-to-face meeting with them, if it's assessments or anything like that. And he'll also be coordinating with the school's PLP staff to make sure that they have contact information so they can work with you. Each student will have a mentor and a teacher, and the mentor has a specific set of roles. They will monitor your pace, your progress and proficiency. And I heard Mr. Hartley mention that already as far as his teachers and staff. And it's critical that they're in there and they're watching and looking at the data and making sure that you are doing your best work, that you are getting the work completed and on track to pass and finish each course that you are enrolled in. They're also going to act as your advocate, kind of act as the student's cheerleader, and help you, really push you to progress and be proactive and encourage you to reach out to your teacher. And I'll show you how you'll contact them through the learning management system that school's PLP houses all your content, all your courses. They'll also be facilitators. They'll call your parents and communicate about, again, the pace, progress, and proficiency. Are you on track? Are you passing your quizzes? And not only passing them, but passing them on fewer than 3 attempts. They really have data on passing on the first attempt. So we want to make sure there's honest attempts at passing everything. And so they'll also be documenting parent phone calls, and they'll be the ones kind of taking ownership of the online learning experience. So they can adjust different things. They can add more content, hide some content, but they'll make sure that it's the way that the student needs it, by communicating with parents and by communicating with the teacher. And so then the last person, you have the mentor who contact you almost daily, and then you'll have a certified teacher working with your students. And so they'll have office hours for instruction. The content is written to be deliver the content. There'll be animated characters delivering content. There'll be videos, which I'll show you. And so it's set up to learn from the system, but the teacher can also have office hours and meet with you as needed to help any learning that you have. So grade all the written assignments, and they'll be the ones to submit the grades in Schools PLP. They'll also give you feedback. So if you submit an assessment, they'll comment back. And if you missed a few things, they might give you some videos or some additional articles or some kind of information to help you master that content. And they might make phone calls to you or parents or emails. And they, as I said before, they are responsible for issuing the final grades as well. And even though parents, I'll show you how to progress monitor right in the dashboard on Schools PLP, at the end of each quarter, the grades will be downloaded and then placed in the Vandalia school system, and your report cards will be generated from Vandalia Butler. Okay. So that's just kind of an overview of the mentor and teacher and your site coordinator role. All right, I want to jump over here. I'm going to log in as a parent and a student to give you that experience that Mr. Hartley mentioned. Now, when you log in, your school address will say Vandalia Butler Schools PLP, just so you know. This is just, oops, I want to show you this little box. Let me log in as a parent. So when students get your username and passwords, parents, that's the same username and password that you'll use. So there's no need to have a second one. All you have to do to log in is use the same username and password and click the box here that says log in as a parent. And that way you can be logged in when your child is logged in, and you can just keep an eye on the activities. So this is the same page that your student will see when they log in. It'll list all the courses that they're enrolled in on the left. It'll have the progress bars and grades listed down the center. Okay, this is just a demo. So these are all different grades for courses, and then on the right-hand side, there's also like a little minute-by-minute Twitter feed. So like today at 2:26 p.m., less than a minute on, terrestrial habitat, read it. So it tells you if they stayed on task, if they stayed in that lesson, and how long they stayed in it, just latest speed. And looking again at this bar here, so you'll have the percentages that the student has earned in the course, but that bar below it tells you if they're progressing. So they're passing those tests and they're working through the material at an expected rate. Okay, so for example, in this case, they should be 90% through the content, but this student, there isn't anyone, his actual progress is 9%. So that's why there's a red band above that. If the student was working and progressing as expected, there would be a green band about the same length as the gray band, because the gray, again, is the expected progress. Okay, so definitely parents, you want to be monitoring that, making sure you're communicating with the mentor, teacher, and your child to keep them on pace for completing and doing their best work. In the report card tab, you can see all the courses again, and then it'll also tell you, when it was assigned, when the course is due, but the progress. This tab here is what's really important. Are they on track? Okay, that's that progress in a different view. Are they behind? Are they far behind? Kind of breaks that out for you a little bit more. And then over here is how many hours have they actually been logged into the system? And then compare that with how many lessons have they finished. Are they logging in and working, or are they logging in and maybe the work isn't really getting done? So we want to make sure they're completing those as well. Each course has several lessons, but a lesson is supposedly a day's work. So if you have 5 courses, you should finish 5 lessons per day. Okay, whether it's consecutive days or not, that's up to you and your family, but making sure that you're working in 5 days per week to keep on that pace to be on track. Okay, and over here, the daily activity tab breaks it down a little more. I like this view only because it clarifies something for me. There are minutes worked, lessons finished, mastered first try, which is obviously a goal, and then login sessions. So the student can log in and log out, or log in and walk away and go over here and do a puzzle, right? That doesn't measure the work that's completed. So as parents, look at that login session, but then come over here and make sure you see that there's minutes worked as well. The program is designed to monitor that. If the computer isn't picking up that they're watching a video, or they're clicking on an assignment, or they're submitting assignments, or doing any of those things, they will not be marked as minutes worked. That's actually engaged in the content. And then over here, I mentioned the mastered first try. The teachers will have the opportunity to give your student a second attempt at work, but that will also more often include additional work or videos or some kind of support to deliver that content maybe in a more meaningful way, so that the second time around your child can pass that with mastery, okay, whatever the assignment was. And the last tab I really want to mention here is the messages. If you log in as a parent or the student and it pops up as a teacher message, it won't let you look at any of the data. It kind of stops you there so that you do that first. Excuse me. The teacher or the mentor has communicated, they want you to get your student, you'll have to log out, log in as the student with your child and look at that message together. And then the student has to acknowledge the message. I can click on this for you. You can click on acknowledge, or you can write back. I guess I'm in parent mode right now, so I can't. Okay. But that will kind of stop you from going any further until you do. That way, it's just kind of a fail-safe way for them to know that someone's seen that message from the teacher. Okay. And so I also want to pull this down here. When you leave the LMS, you want to log out over here. Use that log out tab. And then I'm going to log it back in as the student now without checking the box, same username and password, log in. Okay. And one thing, this is the same screen on the parents login, except it has messages and it has the need help tab. And these two are really valuable tools. So here you can communicate with your school's teacher or mentor. If they provide another way from the Vandalia Butler teachers, if they have another way that they want to communicate, they can do that as well. But that's how the school's PLP teachers and mentors will communicate with the student on a regular basis. And this need help tab, the orange or gold tab on the side, if at any time you forget how to do something, how to submit an assignment, or I don't know, log in. I guess if you're logged in, you can, if you weren't logged in, you wouldn't see it. But any other question, you could type your question here, and it has a lot of resources, frequently asked questions available for you. And you can just read the answer, and hopefully that will solve your problem. If it doesn't, message your mentor or teacher, or email your Vandalia Butler teacher. Okay, so you don't ever feel like you don't have some resources to get over whatever obstacle you're facing. So in here, I want to show you a little bit about logging in. So if you're ready to work on a course, you can pick any course. There's no set rule that you have to start with math or English or whatever course you like. So I'm going to start with first grade. Seems like the younger kids are always really curious too. So I'm going to move this out of my way. And I want you to look over here on this side. All Lincoln Learning courses start with course resources and a course overview, which will give you kind of a pacing and grades that you've submitted throughout the year. And then there are course resources. I want to click on that for you. They offer a really thorough parent and teacher guide that's always available in each course that your student is enrolled in. and it will give you all kinds of information about the course, about the publisher, how they organize their lessons. They'll give you ideas to support individual needs that you're seeing in your child, how to promote deep thinking, questioning techniques. There's just a variety of really good information. Here's like all the end of year expectations for Science 1. I won't read it all to you, but it's 170 pages. You can download these and save them. You don't necessarily need to print anything here. Yeah, lots of little questioning. I did want to go over it a little in this side. So this is the table of contents, but in the guide, it tells you and defines for you why they have these different components. So there's a practice it, I did down, there's a read it, practice it, watch it, play it, show it. There's an answer key. So when they have the show it with AK, that's the answer key, and assess it. And all of these are designed to deliver the content, whether you're reading the content, watching a video, playing a game to practice, and then activities to show what you know. Some of these can be graded, and the teacher can also choose not to grade some of these. There's an answer key, as I mentioned, assessments. And the last three, reinforce it and extend it. Reinforce it activities the teacher could assign if the student was having some difficulty and needed a little bit more support area, or if they kind of flew through it, they can extend that activity. And they have access to a lot of content as well if there are other activities that are needed above grade level, below grade level, whatever, at grade level, but from a different perspective. So they can really accommodate and customize that if your child is having any difficulties or finding it too easy. And I did want to mention this little toolbar. Lincoln Learning offers a read aloud feature for all of its web-based content. Let me get out of the teacher resource and go down to a lesson. Well, let me hit this real quick. So there's a social emotional learning guide, a pacing guide to give all the standards and objectives, a supply list, and just to touch on supplies, you can always contact your teacher, mentor, or site coordinator about this, but also know that it's been encouraged to be creative and use things that are around the home first. I mean, if that's something you can do. So I'm going to show you, I want to open up the ecology and go to a lesson real quick so I can show you that toolbar. So it would start out with a video. Let me start with a read it. But you would want to work through the lesson, go through the teach it, the watch it, then teach it. Sometimes it'll have a little narrated, animated cartoon character or avatar reading to the student. So let me open this up. And the videos complement the reading. So often it'll be either real close to what they saw in the video.
Objective. You will identify terrestrial habitats.
And it would read the entire page, but if you just want to have part of the passage read, you can highlight and you can click that arrow and it'll just read the part that you highlighted.
Just like you have a place that you call home, okay. Animals and plants.
And then you can also use the dictionary feature in this toolbar. If you weren't sure what this terrestrial meant, terrestrial, you could highlight it and dictionary. And it would pop up here. And if you want it read, again, you can hit the arrow.
Adjective. Of or relating to. Adjective. Of or relating to or.
And you can also have things translated. So I'll just highlight a little bit. I can highlight a word. I don't know what terrestrial is in Spanish. So I could highlight terrestrial, and then if I touch the globe, it will tell me my word, and it'll tell me it in Spanish.
Terrestre.
Okay. If I needed a particular language, I could go to the setting key, and over here at translations, I can translate the text to about 60 different languages. Most of them will read aloud as well. There are a few that we've noticed have just the text. They don't have it read aloud. Okay, you can change the rate of the speech. You can highlight as well. Sometimes kids like to highlight keywords that they're working on or finding. They highlight again and highlight like that. Okay, but let me jump back because I wanted to also show you, there's a Teach It video. Watch it. This kind of just introduces the whole course. And you can open the entire screen by hitting that little square up here like that. And then press play. And widen it up.
Hello, junior scientist. My name is Kelvin, and I would love to welcome you to Science One. Did you know science is everywhere? From the air you breathe to everything around you, science is everywhere.
Okay, I'll just
So
give you a
get
little taste of it. Okay, and you can minimize it again from the little arrows. Exit full screen. You can hit escape and go all the way back. But the courses are set up. Obviously, they're introducing this entire course in the Watch It. But then when you get into lesson 1, you'll want to work through, do the Teach It first and the Read It. Like I said, they kind of work together. And then you might get into the Show It. I'll show you this little activity. And this is an example of you can print it, you can upload to Google, or you can just improvise on paper. Or you can just write the words. It asks you to put the word terrestrial habitat in the middle and then give 4 examples. And rather than downloading and printing, which you can, I have it down here too, you can just come down to the bottom where the assignment is, and you can type it into the box. You can type it, you could go to your Google Drive and type, and then this has already been submitted, and there would be a box right here to hit submit. If you chose to print or to draw a Venn diagram with pictures on paper, you could snap a picture or scan it with your phone and upload it to your computer and then hit submit as a file. Okay. As I said, if you forget or having any difficulty, go to Need Help or reach out to your teacher or mentor, and they can also help you, or your teacher at Vandalia. And I would say your students should just get used to going to the next activity tab. Then they're not wondering, am I going in order? I've been touching around so you can see different things, but if they go to the next one, it'll automatically pick up where they left off. If they quit right now, if they wanted to do all the Read It, Teach It, Show It, but they didn't keep going to the next teach piece, they can stop and come back to it a little later. And I think that's just something you'll have to make a judgment on your own and your family and what works best. Okay, and I'm in the answer key right now. So you can check your work. Sometimes the teachers might choose to hide some of the answer keys. That's a teacher preference. Okay. I think I've touched on most everything. We want to go to questions, or is there anything else you would like me to show you?
Stacy, do you mind just going back and showing the parent-teacher resource guide, as well as how parents can kind of see if the child's on track and what may or may not be needed or completed? Do you mind showing both of those pieces, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So that resource guide was the one parent and teacher guide that I opened in the beginning. And it'll talk to you about all the different, let me see if I can download. Let me download it so it's a little bit bigger for you. Yeah, it'll give you a nice overview of the entire course and talk to you about how they engage the student in the learning. They start with questions and things like that. It says the engage sections kind of steer you to use both online and offline activities. And they kind of provide you with tips to guide your student through the learning. The demonstrate piece sections support the ways your student will show their understanding of the content. And these pages, along with the remainder of the information, you'll find in the course introduction. And these will empower you to be an effective educational guide. So it kind of goes through, I mentioned that all of the course pieces are here. Course introduction, it talks about materials, assessments, and how it might be helpful to create a science notebook. It isn't something you have to do, but it's definitely a good support system. Different ideas that you could use. Understanding how people learn is in here. Kind of some background on learning and teaching. Different ways to help your student. How to understand attention span and how you can support them in breaking up some of the work. And different ways to help focus their attention. These aren't necessarily the lessons themselves, but just guides for parents and teachers working with them and different questions. And as I mentioned before, these are the different components. So if you want to know what they're supposed to be getting out of these just different activities, this is where you would go for that. And I wanted to point, there's Apply-Its, and the Apply-Its are non-graded assessments that cover content from multiple lessons. Apply-Its can be cumulative projects that allow students to demonstrate mastery of several learning objectives, and teachers can elect to make these gradable or not gradable. It breaks down the course structure and what the games and videos are intended to do and things like that. And I think she wanted me to go in here. Did that answer your question, or was there another piece?
Yeah, Stacy, that was perfect. Do you mind also just going to that front page where parents can see progress for students, if they're on track, if they're caught up, if they're fallen behind?
I don't mind at all.
Thank you.
Back there. Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Okay, so in the parent overview, if you go to course overview, you can see the different lessons in the course and activities and things that they've completed, and it'll have a score right here. So terrestrial habitat, show it, the grade will appear, everything that's turned in. The teacher can choose to excuse certain show it's and different activities too. They'll have their last activity, their pace date, and the attempts, the number of attempts that they made to turn in the assessments, and total minutes, and the total grade so far. But this is kind of like your ongoing grade card as well, with all the assignments attached to it in the course. And if they're on pace and finishing these things, so they can check it off.
Thank you. Along that same line, Stacy, there is a question that a parent kind of saw where a student could have more than one chance to do things at multiple attempts. Is that true on assessments as well? Do students have an opportunity to have multiple attempts on assessments?
Yes, and that can be adjusted by the district as far as how many, but the goal is that it's less than 3. And as you noticed on this particular daily activity, mastered first try is obviously the top goal, priority goal, but sometimes the content's difficult, and if it's all brand new, they might want to adjust the curriculum. So if the teacher gives a second attempt, they also have in their capabilities to grade the assignment and send back, kind of push back to the student additional assignments. So there might be another video to watch, or maybe another article to read, something a little different to help them close that gap. Whatever it was that they didn't understand in that content, they can add that support in there. They'll, like I said, they can adjust some of those lessons and push back and then give them another attempt. But absolutely.
Okay, super. So we do have some additional questions that I'd like to go ahead and ask. And this one may be for Mr. Hartley. When will we know schedules for middle school and high school? So when will we know what our students are able to take, or how was the schedule put together for middle school students and high school students?
So for middle school and high school, it was developed at the building, just like if the student was coming back face to face. What I've asked those counselors to do is make copies of the original schedules and send them my way. So I'm in the process now of actually putting the students into the courses that are as closely matched to Vandalia Butler courses as they are inside of the school's PLP platform.
Super.
I'll add one more piece to that. I was reading some of the questions that were coming through the chat. Questions about advanced math. Yes, we'll be able to accommodate 6th, 7th, and 8th grade specifically, where some of the students are in a different math course than their peers. And then obviously at the high school, it's going to be dependent on students and what their schedules were as developed at Butler.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So there were some questions about one of the earlier questions around elementary student-teacher ratios. Mr. Hartley, can you share kind of maybe what an idea of that ratio might look like for your Vandalia Butler teachers?
Sure. We have about 45, between 45 students at each of the grade levels, some a little bit lower. So if we have a teacher from Vandalia, they're going to have that grade level, and in some cases 2 grade levels. So at the young grades, K1, 2, we're looking at 1 teacher to do each of those grade levels independently. At grades 3 and 4, we're looking at 1 teacher to do about 75 to 80 students. Same thing at 5 to 6.
Super. Login details. When should parents expect to receive the URL and the username and password information for logging in?
Yes, we're working through that right now. I've mentioned in some of my email updates that I'll be sending individual emails out to each family this week. I'd love to be able to start that process tomorrow, and I will if I can, but I'll promise you that they'll be out this week, and I'll try to do them as soon as I possibly can. I know some parents are asking if they can get in to start having their child get familiar with the system before Monday morning.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Device pickup. Can you maybe talk a little bit, Mr. Hartley, about if a parent needs a device and when are those available from the school and what that might look like?
Sure. Devices are still able to be picked up from their home building during the school hours. I would say don't come in right at the beginning of the day. The offices are pretty busy right at the beginning of the day, but our buildings are still available then throughout the day. Each of the building principals has a list of students that'll be in the school's PLP, so they expect those families to come in to pick up a device. Many of you did that already last week, I know, but if you haven't had any opportunity, you still can really anytime this week.
And so to piggyback on that just for a moment, there was a question about devices and do they have to use a Chromebook or are they able to utilize a different device? And from a school's PLP end, I can just share all of the course content is web-based. So the device in and of itself doesn't make a huge difference. It's more about the actual web browser that your child may be using. Chrome works great. Safari works great. We are told by schools PLP that Internet Explorer is not a preferred browser to use, and that's primarily there are some formatting and some delays that occur. So other than Internet Explorer, you technically could use your own, like your phone as a device. We wouldn't recommend that, maybe in an emergency, but long-term, certainly not. So I don't think the actual device in and of itself is as big of a concern as it would be the web browser that you're using. Okay, there was a question about school fees. Are parents still required to pay school fees, Mr. Hartley? And if so, what does that look like?
Yes, that information will come from our principals here in the near future. Just watch for that communication. It'll probably come from me as well. I'll let everyone know what that decision will be.
Super. There's a question about when students are able to transition back to school. Are they going to be in the same place, learning the same topics as the kids currently going to in person? I briefly shared in the chat that pacing and sequence may not be directly aligned, but the Ohio standards are covered in both the remote option and in the brick and mortar option. So Mr. Hartley, do you want to maybe talk about that a little bit?
Right. What we're hoping for is once our teachers and the students get moving into the school's PLP platform, that we'll be able to actually look at where they are, look at where our students are in face-to-face brick and mortar, and make sure that the learning is as closely related as possible. As I mentioned earlier, we expect there to be some kind of a transition again back into school in January and or into August of next school year. So it is our hope that the school's PLP platform closely is lined up to what we're doing in the buildings as we possibly can.
Super. There are a few more questions. NWEAs, the MAP assessment, are students still going to be required to take those if they're choosing remote?
We do have the option to do that. It is a remote option for us to use. And it may be something that we'll try at some of the younger grade levels, probably not all the way through K through 8 or 1 through 8 is the way we do it in the brick and mortar school. We may try that though at grades 1, 2, and 3, but at this point, a decision hasn't been made on that.
Super, thank you. There are a few questions. I'm going to kind of consolidate these together around kids being able to, will parents have access to a schedule or an agenda for daily assignments? Particularly the example was a parent that has 2 kindergartners and just trying to figure out a plan in place. I don't know, maybe Stacy, you can refer, like, what advice would you have for a parent that's in that situation?
Well, as I mentioned, the program has a lesson per day. So you might talk with the teacher about hiding everything but the 5 lessons for the week, or you might want to drill down and just say, we only want to see 1 a day, but I would communicate with the teachers because they can hide it or they can leave it open so that you know what's coming. It's kind of nice to have that flexibility, but yeah, I think it'll be some planning and testing things out, especially if you have kindergartners, to see if they need to break some of that content up. Like I mentioned before, getting some of the videos and the reading done. And then maybe there's a hands-on activity that they can go do and kind of break some of that up. But it's not like a Google Classroom where it's going to tell you these are the things you need to complete today. I would kind of look at that overview page that I showed you that has all the different assignments, and then each lesson. You could go through and say, Monday we're on lesson 1, see if you get it done. Tuesday, lesson 2, and track that on a calendar or an agenda if you wanted. It's pretty individualized, I would think. But yeah, a lesson is supposed to be completed per day. And then again, talk with the teacher about hiding and not hiding things.
Okay, there are some more questions just about when a student could expect to get their schedule. Definitely once you receive your login information from Mr. Hartley, when you get in there, you'll be able to see your child's schedule of courses. Now, with the remote option, there's flexibility. Students won't necessarily have to say, like, oh, during this time I need to be in language arts, and this time I need to take my math class, and this time I need to take social studies. There's going to be a lot of flexibility in that in regards to what your child or what you recommend for your child in regards to the layout, the plan of the day. It really is 1 lesson per day, and ideally your child should plan on about 50 minutes per course per day, and that will be very flexible dependent upon that day's activities, but it shouldn't exceed much beyond a 50-minute per course per day time duration. And if so, and your child's struggling, reach out to the mentor, reach out to your child's teacher, have some conversations as to how might your child get the best support for that. Speaking of that, there was a question about speech services, Mr. Hartley. If a child has an IEP or a 504 and is receiving some services, what might that support look like for a child?
So what you should expect is somebody from our department will be reaching out to you if they haven't already. So Lisa Hildebrand is in charge of our pupil services department, along with Margie Zimfer and Shallon Lechner. They'll reach out with a plan for how we're going to address those kinds of needs. In some cases, it's going to be, again, people from Vandalia that your kids have already worked with. So again, we'll reach out to you for those kinds of special needs.
There's a question around picking up books, supplies, such as homework, worksheets for classes, similar to last year. I don't believe that's going to be the case. This is definitely, everything is embedded in the courses. There are, as was mentioned at the beginning of tonight's session, there are some basic supplies that your child will need. And there may be some books that your child will be asked to read or things like that. And that's not something that you would pick up necessarily from the school. That would be a library thing, or if you have trouble accessing something and you need it and it's not a basic household supply item, I would just say, again, communicate with your mentor, communicate with your child's teacher, and devising a plan of what may be available. What school supplies are needed? We kind of talked about that. Definitely some paper alongside those devices. What about state tests? Will they be taking them this year?
Boy, that's a good question for everybody. We don't know yet. We're going to plan. The answer is yes. In fact, we are ordering paper versions of the grade 3 test actually today for the fall. And if testing does continue on, then we'll reach out and figure out plans for how we'll have to address this with our PLP students. So for all the parents right now, the only test that we would have from the state level in the fall or this first semester would be at grade 3 for the reading language arts portion. If we move on into the spring, again, we're not sure from the state level if testing will take place or not, but if we do move into the spring and testing is required, we'll come up with some type of plan.
Mm-hmm. Super, great question. We're all anxiously awaiting the answer to that for sure. Okay, a few more questions came in. A sophomore student was supposed to be taking woodshop and a global food class. How are those classes done online?
So the schedule will not match up exactly from what a Butler student would have to what we have in the school's PLP. We'll try our best to match students to those courses, but a class like woodshop just won't be available for the remote option.
Super. The question about 504s and IEPs, we have a similar question that was already addressed, and the answer to that would be Mr. Hartley's staff support will reach out to you directly if your child is on an IEP or has a 504, and those services will continue, and they'll talk about what that looks like in a distance learning environment. If I want to log in later on the day, is there going to be any support or help? So maybe Stacy, if you want to talk for the secondary piece, and then maybe Mr. Hartley for the elementary.
I was going to say the school's PLP teachers and mentors, I would just say communicate with them. They could set up office hours, and some they might offer that as some days of the week. Maybe they'll meet with you online. I don't know until you talk to the teacher exactly what their hours are going to be, but I've heard that they've typically been flexible with that. So you might need to check in some days during the day, but I'm sure they'll make something available. But you can talk about the Vandalia Butler teachers as well.
Yes, so our teachers will be available during regular school hours, but please make sure that if your child's working at 7 p.m. at night and has a question and they put it in through the email system, they'll be monitoring the next morning and try to get back to you as soon as possible. Same with our mentors, then our monitors in grades 7 through 12. They'll be working the standard school hours, but again, we'll be there, making sure they catch up for any kinds of questions the next day.
Okay. Will there still be band?
Not through the remote school.
How much oversight from parents does the PLP system require? We're both at home, but working at home, so there's no way we can be looking over his shoulder. Stacy, do you want to talk a little bit about the parent oversight? And I think it obviously is dependent upon the age of the child. Little ones are probably going to need a little bit more oversight.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If they're young, and especially if technology is new, I would say maybe you could tag team or start in your off time if you do take, after work or something, and get them used to the system. before putting them on their own. They will have their teacher. I don't know if they'll set up at least at the elementary age, they might set up some times to support them, but yeah, and the content is there, but yeah, I would say with the technology, looking at it carefully, they will need some support in the beginning for sure. And the older kids, I failed to mention, you mentioned the monitors. In addition to the mentor and teacher, they have a Vandalia Butler monitor who'll be checking in on them too, kind of watching that pace, progress, and proficiency.
I did see a question come through on how will my student get a fine arts credit? You know, especially at grades 9 through 12, the monitors are going to be our guidance counselors. So they will be closely monitoring what our students need for graduation requirements, in addition to what we have them placed into for the school's PLP. So if there are special cases that we need to have a student earn a credit in a specific field, we're going to work our best to try to figure out what we can do to have that, you know, be available through school's PLP.
Super. There's a question for the devices, Mr. Hartley, in particular. If they have a school Chromebook, are other websites blocked? How will they make sure, how will the school make sure that kids aren't traveling to websites that may not be necessary to complete their work?
Right. So once they're off of our school campus, it's tough for us to monitor that through the Chromebook. So that will be something that you know, parents will have to monitor from the home site.
Good. Another question, just as a reminder, the idea of approximate daily hours, recommended daily schedule. I would recommend that everybody kind of think about 50 minutes per subject per course per day. So if I've got 4 core courses, then that's going to be about 200 minutes for the day that I would want to plan. There is a question specific for a second grader. How many courses will a second grader expect to have on their schedule, Mr. Hartley?
Well, it should be the 4 core courses, and we're going to try to include some type of a special, be it, you know, phys ed, art, or music. Super.
When will the middle school, high school kids meet their mentors? That will happen. What will happen, the actual process is this. Once a mentor has been assigned to your child, a mentor will work with Mr. Hartley in the beginning, and then they will get your parent, the parent contact information. You will receive an email from the mentor, and then the mentor will try to schedule a phone call to just build some rapport, kind of talk about the flow, talk about the school's PLP end of student expectations. So that's kind of the timeline as to how that process will roll out.
And if I can, at our grades K through 6, our teachers there will be reaching out. They're working right now to plan how to introduce themselves to the students that are going to be in the school's PLP program.
There is a specific question about PE. I'm unsure if we're talking elementary or we're talking secondary. I'm going to guess it might be a high school PE credit. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Mr.
Yeah, that one may be one that we should just have that person call me directly and or contact their high school counselor.
Super. Will access to other websites on the Chromebooks be blocked? We talked about that one. If I've got a child who I'm concerned, maybe my child, I'm concerned maybe have a disability, and I want to start the process for potential evaluation, who should I contact at Vandalia Butler?
Go ahead and reach out to Lisa Hildebrand, and I can actually go ahead in my next email, I'll put that information out to all the parents.
Okay, thank you. What about choir? Is that going to be the same as band?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, let's hope that our kiddos can come back second semester.
So are they able to join band or choir, but they just wouldn't be remote? They would be coming into the building, or they're not going to be able to do that at all?
No, we haven't been able, we haven't made that decision that students are not able to do that.
Gotcha, okay.
What's the website they will go on to do their schoolwork? Mr. Hartley will send that to you via email along with the username and password information. because that's a specific Vandalia Butler URL. So he'll get that out to you soon. We just wanted to make sure our son had all of his credits to still get into the Miami Valley CTC. And that was a thank you. You're welcome. 1 lesson per subject per week, or 1 lesson per subject per day. 1 lesson per subject per day. So your child should have a lesson for every subject on a daily basis. And I think that concludes. We're at 7:28, and we've gone through all of the questions. I hope that I didn't miss any questions. If so, my sincere apologies. I tried to monitor and answer them as we went along. If you do have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Mr. Hartley via email. He is happy to answer your questions, and just know that we're here to support you. I know these are tough decisions, but we'll get through, and hopefully in January be able to have all of our kiddos back in the typical classroom setting. So we thank you all for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.